All right, this meeting is being held remotely as an alternative means of public access pursuant to Chapter 20 of the Acts of 2021, temporarily amending certain provisions of the open meeting law. You are hereby advised that this meeting and all communications during this meeting may be recorded by the town of Hingham in accordance with the open meeting law. If any participant wishes to record this meeting, please notify the chair, that would be me, at the start of the meeting in accordance with Mass General Ledger Section 30A, Section 220F, so that the chair may inform other participants of said recording. And I turned it on, so we're ready to go. Everyone should have the agenda in front of them, and we will plow through them. We have Bill Solomon is on, who's our counsel. Laura will be representing for Michelle, who's for Harbor Media, and we'll press on. Okay. All right. So we have on the call, we have Michael Leary, have Dave Jones, chairman. We have John Rice, and we have Laura Burns and Bill Solomon. That would be the roll call. All right. Has everybody read the minutes of Tuesday, January 25th, 2022? Yes. Okay. All right. I'm frozen here, but you guys can hear me, so that's fine. All right. Any questions, comments, additions?
No, good job on the minutes. Pretty accurate.
The minutes are accurate?
I move to approve the minutes.
I second it.
All right. And according to our parliamentarian, I should poll you guys. So Michael Leary, what do you say?
Aye.
Dave Jones, myself, I say aye. John Rice?
Aye.
Okay, and Laura, you can vote on the minutes for, well, no, maybe she can't. I'm not really sure, but.
She wasn't there, no.
Just the committee.
She will, okay, all right. So approved and so said, so we can ship that off. All right, first up, we have the Verizon license renewal. And Bill, you want to get us up to date on that?
Yeah, I've been in the middle of still a million Verizon license renewal, so I haven't finished the Hingham draft. I will after I get done with some this week. But I just wanted to go over the capital dollars again, and let me, if I can put something on the screen. You know, the Verizon license will be hopefully, if they want to sign, if they want to do one, 5 years where they get a 3-year unilateral out. That's the standard, and probably no way around that. In exchange for the 3-year unilateral out, we get paid pet capital in 3 years as a set dollar amount. So let me just put on, if I could share. Dave, are you handling Zoom, or who's handling that?
I'm not sure. Let's see. Who can start anything? All participants can share. Okay. You should be able to share now.
Okay. Okay. So I just updated this, but went through this last time. These are the subscriber numbers. They're probably lower for Verizon and also Comcast, but Verizon is losing subscribers more quickly. The end of 2020, they were down to 2,839. You can see how they, at one point, they were up to 3,447. Comcast is going down, but not as quickly. As we know, the Verizon license last time had a set dollar amount, capital dollar amount of $19,000 a year for 5 years, a total of $95,000, and 0.5% of gross revenues. Based on the revenues at that time, back up, approximately $110 per subscriber. That 0.5% of gross revenues would have been about $17,820. So altogether, about $36,820 at that time, based on the subscriber base. Comcast license had $250,000, contrasted with $36,820 as an estimate. Comcast is a set dollar amount. And although Verizon doesn't want to acknowledge this as something they should have to match or have some sort of contribution for, that represents what Comcast did. Comcast had, as you know, a $60,000 payment, one-time payment to the town for the iNet buyout. And that would be 6,000 a year. So if we look at this analysis and Comcast 25,000 a year. If I add 6,000 to that, again, Verizon doesn't want to acknowledge they can match that. Even their license says when it talks about if someone went after them and whether they had a level playing field, that you shouldn't be counting non-PEG capital. We disagree with that. We think, another company provides an iNet or video return that has value. So if you look at the comparison, if you take 31,000, which is the 25 by Comcast, plus we put 6 in there for Comcast, 31. And if we take the subscriber numbers at the end of 2020, Verizon had 61.5% of subscribers, 2,839 over 4,610 comes to 69 and 61.5%. You multiply that times 31,000, that's $19,065. If I add a 25% premium, it's a kind of premium I would add to say, well, Verizon, you got a short, although it's not a shorter license, from there, it's a little different the second time around because in a sense, it's not a shorter license than Comcast. It's the 5 years of now a 10-year license, but it's still a 5-year license. We had to spend time doing it and the unilateral out. If I add a 25% premium for that, then the 19,000 comes to 23,831. If I round that down, because for the first 5 years, Verizon paid 36,000, 35,000, whatever the numbers were, versus the 25,000. If I try to round that down, understanding they'll say, well, they paid a lot more for 5 years, but that's the deal they did. But they didn't know. Comcast went afterwards. They didn't say, well, Comcast pays less, and so we want to fix that. They didn't have a lot of rights to fix it under the license we gave them. Our Verizon license did not have a capital Me Too provision where they could say, well, Comcast paid less, and we automatically go down. My licenses in Massachusetts don't have that. Other licenses have that Verizon capital Me Too. So they weren't happy, and we didn't get to a deal with the fact that Comcast paid less. They would have only had a 3-year out. They could have terminate the license with 3 years notice. So, but understanding they paid more, around the 23,831 down to 22,000, I think that's a good number for us to have for capital with Verizon. We'll discuss it later, but and Verizon really doesn't want to discuss capital dollars until you get the legal the license done, which I think is fine. And so I said, for your next meeting, I'll have the license beforehand so we can look it over and go over it. But I think that's a good number. Verizon, Comcast pays 25,000. They pay 22. I mean, that's a good number for us. Why? Because I think the differential in subscribers will be even greater at the end of 2021. So as they see the world, that they have a lot fewer subscribers and they're not paying a lot less. And we say, well, one is last time actually the money was pretty similar because we think Comcast is paying 31,000 over 10 years, and what per year based on the 6,000 buyout, and so we think 22 is a good number. I like that number. I like a number where we can stand by it and not have to come down, because the more you come down, the more they think they can get you further. So if you have any thoughts, questions now on that, great. We went over it last time, but I just recalculated. And
I actually have a couple thoughts.
Okay, go ahead.
So, I mean, last time we got the $37,000 because they were doing a shortened contract. This time they wanted an additional item with the unilateral leaving after 3 years, right? And also that they're, we don't have control over their their accounts. I mean, one of the reasons that they're losing subscriber base is they're probably not putting as much money into it and effort into it.
Yeah, that they have more than one foot out the door on cable. That's correct.
It just seems like we're going down quite a bit.
Well,
And-
two things. One is, again, we got the number last time. I always say we got it. Why? Because of the committee and myself. In other words, like God didn't write that number. It was way more than most communities. So one thing I think is helpful to know is that it's not like these things are written somewhere and people just like, you look it up like a chart and say, oh, all right, we get this much money. That it reflected a very, and Michael, I can't remember if you were involved. I don't think so, but very, very tense hearing and meetings that everyone they came back with kumbaya. And so it really reflected the work the committee and I did. So with that said, one of the things I realize in life is that, what I do, I always try to see what the other side's thinking, because, what Verizon could do, they could say they couldn't care less about licensing, and it could be like Charter. They wouldn't even get to a license. But to their credit, they try to get to a license, and they try to still pay good capital. So the challenge always was that we could get more capital from Verizon than we could from Comcast. And the committee, in a failure arrived at, the committee decided to take the 250 plus, the buyout as being sufficient. In other words, so that it worked for the town to move on. And it was deemed to be, I think, a reasonable conclusion, a fair number. And so the way these companies view things, they view it very much in comparison to the other party. So with significantly less subscribers, Verizon's not going to want to pay more than Comcast for the next 5 years. Having paid, although we disagree on how you judge the Comcast payment, having paid more for the first 5 years. So we do know they're not going to want to pay more than Comcast. And so the reason I number crunch in this is very different than a Comcast license where you spend a lot of time on your needs and interest, is that they have lots of layers of looking at things financially, as I do, and that's why I get good results. And so from my view, and you can decide as committee what you want to do, I don't see how you're going to get them easily to pay more than, and Comcast is 25, more than Comcast. Also, to me, the most important thing, as is with Verizon, is your license language. And I continue to get with Verizon all of the language I need that other places don't have, that are worth far more than a few dollars. For instance, we have, and will continue to have, and they haven't been able to go back on this with me, even though their other licenses don't have it. The crucial provision, as you may remember, that revenues are calculated, revenues that are bundled for cable, internet, and telephone. Every license in the state other than mine and the city of Newton, which has a different approach, says that the cable portion of that bundle, the cable dollars of that bundle, are calculated based how Verizon keeps their books. So that in a world where it used to have a bundle of $100 and cable was 70 or 65, in the world we live in now, there's still not a lot of internet competition. So that, and there's a lot of video competition. So that in that world, and Comcast has done this to some degree, rather than saying $120 bundle, 80 is cable, they can say, well, no, not the way we keep our books. $120 bundle, 75 or 80 or internet, 20 or telephone, and 20 or cable. And so you get 5% or 4.85% of $20. That provision is worth its weight in gold to Hingham. And for us and for me to get those provisions, although albeit that's why I want to do the language first, but you still have to get everything done. We're not going to be as successful if we get into a contest over what is probably not a big difference. If you begin with the reality that it's going to be hard to get them to pay more than Comcast for the next 5 years, given their materially lower number of subscribers and the fact they paid materially more in some ways for the first 5 years. Now, the fact that they're the reason they have fewer subscribers, if you're on their side, they don't see that as being relevant because that's, they look at it, and it's not an unfair way to look at it, capital on a per subscriber basis. Now, that said, and there's no magic to my numbers, but the number I had there, let's say 22, it could be 23, whatever. But that's not materially less than Comcast pays. I guess it's a little more if you count the video return. And maybe, just that was why we talk it out, we could be a little higher based on the video return. And maybe we want to be. But but one thing I mentioned here that I think is important and we need to understand, and I have this in doing it in Sudbury, where I got them to agree on the number. Sudbury, the same thing. We had there they have the town pays for the iNet. They lease it from Comcast now, and we use that to say, well, you need to pay more. And they were whining about it, but then Paul Train, their lawyer, found out. And it's not untypical that Verizon pays Comcast like half of the Comcast maintenance charge for the iNet. So that if they now got it from the town for free, because the town, in a sense, the town pays for it, and they wouldn't have to pay Comcast in theory, then they recognize they'd be saving money and they agree with that number. So with that, it's a negotiating question. Should we come in higher than the 25? In other words, in our view, we could say, well, 31 is an equal payment, and we want to have 28, 27. All of that is fine. I certainly don't think we should be over 31. And part of my view of it is in exchange for the license language we need. I feel like if we can give them a number they're happier with, that's a good trade for us. But I don't see if anyone wants to make the case of how we're going to get them to pay more than 31,000, maybe not more than 25,000 a year. I don't see how we get there. And the one thing I don't like to do when negotiating with a multi-billion-dollar company is come in with a number and then take too many steps back, because then they think, although again, we want the license language done first. So if we take steps back on, and the steps back wouldn't be me. I mean, the steps back in the Comcast license were more the committee. I mean, I felt, we could get a higher number, but oftentimes the committee just feels like, well, this is a number that works, so we like to move on. So, so I think you need to be somewhere between 20, 23, maybe 22, 23 and 31,000. There's no harm in being higher and let them feel they want something. But I wouldn't be higher than that, because then they'll disengage. Verizon won't be reality based, and that I don't like to see.
No, I understand, Bill, and it'll be interesting. You definitely have all the experience surrounding that, and we're relying on you on that. So it sounds like you're going to go, and maybe the goal is a number around 22, but it sounds like you can go in a little higher with the assumption that they're going to actually bring you down a little bit. So
yeah, and maybe more realistically that I'm still getting the license language I want. They've changed a few little things. They came up with a new team, a whole new franchising team in New York 6 months ago, and everything was on hold for 5 months. And the things they changed, I got licenses there haven't changed, but there's a few now. They've changed some things, but not my really important things. Other things that I just think, not reasonable to change. I negotiated for, as these guys know, a year and a half in Wareham as the lead community for Hingham. And because rather than do it in different places. And now as the new people come in, they want to change this or that, you know what? No, we made compromises to get to where we got. If you want to unravel the whole thing, it's not going to work. So I think maybe more realistically, if we prevail on the language we need, or if we don't quite prevail, then we have the ability to say, not the mix and match. I could say to their attorney, you know what? I can try to help on the capital number a little bit, but I got to have this language. And we'll talk about that. So I do want, like they want, I don't want to give them a number and I don't want to give them a break as we see it until I know we have the license language we want. And then when we get that, I view that as so important that then, yes, probably come in a little higher, but I'm just a little, and we'll be able to relook at it. But I just, since they poo-poo the 6,000, I don't want to grant them that. But I just, my gut feel says, you know what? If we're just a little below 25,000 here, 24, whatever, 23, I think that's a good deal. And I think if we can get that and move on, because what I care about, the longer it takes, the more likely it is that they're not going to want a license or they're not going to want to pay reasonable capital. They're still paying fair capital. And so we'll, Michael, we'll be able to judge those things. And I won't give them a number before we talk about it again. And I think your point's well taken. Sometimes, I always say, I get great licenses, but every once in a while I say, I got to remind myself, I can't be like Fredo and the Godfather, where I say, you can't talk to Verizon like that. You have to. So I do think, and there is reason to let people feel they got you down. I couldn't possibly give a number that's my number if I was dealing with other people. But as your point, and thank you, Paul Train, John Harrington, their attorneys, but even Paul Train, he's, we talk reality. We talk, and we don't fudge it, and he's actually fair on that. And if he get a number, because he's the guy who has to sell it, and if he believes it, he's got great success selling to the Verizon, and I do believe he sells it because they have faith in him. So that at that point, if we have the license language we want, part of my longer term, but I think it applies short term, is to give him a number that he's not going to go, oh man, they're going to roll their eyes at Verizon, particularly if he's got in us the license language. So point taken, we'll visit it again. I just wanted to go over the numbers and do the analysis. At the same time, even though it's not crucial, they'll want a capital plan, not because they care two wits, but because Verizon will say to Paul Train, did they give you a capital plan? No one will look at it, but they just need to get it so they can all say they had it. And that will be I know the access director from the last meeting, as Dave mentioned, is working on that. And hopefully for the next meeting, I'll have the draft license beforehand. I'd like to get the capital plan draft beforehand. And as long as the number is good enough and, honest, then I think we'll be all set to start negotiating with Verizon right after our next meeting.
Okay.
All right, Bill. Bill, could you send me the attachment for the minutes?
Yes.
Excellent.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you.
right.
John, I'd like to try to find out. I don't want to ask Comcast, and maybe you have to fund Verizon. It'd be interesting to find out if Verizon pays Comcast for the iNet, because if they do, they should stop, because you own it. And then we have really better argument to say you should give us more money, because the money you were paying them, you should pay us.
Okay, we can track
We could do
that.
that. We could clarify that. Yep.
Yep.
Great.
Put that as an action item there, Mike.
Bill, do you think that, so if you were going to sum up, what is the kind of money that you think you can negotiate at the end of the day for both the operating and the capital from Verizon?
Yeah, well, the operating
where do you think we'll really end up at?
Sorry.
I'm sorry?
The operating will stay the same, 4.85.
All right.
And the capital, I I want to, this, I want to, I'd like, yeah. I'll give you the moment, my gut feel, bottom line, and taking into account things. If we got 22,500, if I got all the language I wanted, and someone said to me, you can do all the language in 22,500, sitting here, I'd say, you know what, let's sign it, because the time goes along, they'll be further outside of wanting to do cable.
You mentioned in what
that would be 20. You'd get actually 36 for the first 3 years, right?
well, yeah, that's right. It would be paid exactly. You would be paid over 3 years, as if you've done the numbers 36, right? But Bill, you said you in part of what you talked about was the risk that they might do their computation on the balance between internet, cable, and phone. And does that affect our 4.85% if they recalculate how they see what their bundle is? Or is that something that you're holding fast to in terms of, you need to look at it the same way we did the last contract? Why are you changing? Okay, let me just put something up, if you hold for 1 sec. I think we should acknowledge also that Chris has arrived on the video screen, and we have our other committee member.
Hey, Chris.
Thanks, guys, for recognizing my presence.
Well, it was weird because when the exhibit was on, I couldn't even see you. You were kind of like,
Yeah, well,
I was hiding below the fold.
it's
Yeah.
below the fold.
He's in fuzzy background land.
Yeah, really.
Okay, so let me just give you an example here. So this is Burlington. I didn't do it, but I now represent them, and I did their Comcast license last year, and I'm doing the Verizon license. So this is the tip. Every license other than mine has in the PEG section, if you can read this, if cable services are provided to subscribers in conjunction with non-cable services, then the calculation of gross revenues shall be adjusted if need, doesn't make it, to include only the value of the cable services billed to subscribers as reflected on the books and records of the licensee in accordance with FCC or state rules, regulations, standards, and orders. There are no FCC or state or federal regulations or orders. And notwithstanding, it will not intentionally or unlawfully allocate to avoid payments, but they don't have to do that. The key is that these towns are by contract telling Verizon, basically with meaningless conditions, that how they reflect it on their books is how they calculate the cable portion. And again, just think of the reality now. Where are they getting competition on video? Hulu, Apple, Disney, Google. So they want to chart. They want to tell people that now just add cable and it'll be $20. They want to, and so that could decimate your revenues. Every license other than mine, and one in Newton, in the state has that. Now let's go to your license. And let me just also follow one thing up here. I think what you're saying is in that language, there's a bit of a loophole.
That they can.
Oh, it's more than loophole. It says
Yeah.
however you
It's a
do
wide
your
hole.
books, it's fine. It's
Yeah.
like it's a gaping hole.
Yeah.
Now, let me go
I
to
don't
one thing.
I don't think you need to bring up the,
Well, no, just look at it because I think it's helpful. This is one. This will be the only legal issue we go over. So when I first negotiated with them first in Reading, the first town that had an attorney, this is 2007, first time around, that I wrote something up with Mike Katz, my financial advisor in Washington State, who's now retired, that said, all right, why don't we, I wrote it up that said, in order to figure out what portion of a bundle is attributed to cable, we'll look at the individual pricing. What do you charge for cable alone? What do you charge for Verizon for the internet alone? And they said, that's exactly how we'll do it, but we won't agree to it. So they had their provision. And I said, well, let's say nothing, because saying nothing back then was better than agreeing how they did it, how they did it on their books with meaningless language in accordance with applicable law. Saying nothing was better. So what I did this time round is between your first license and your second one, GAAP, General Accounting Principles, the GAAP standards came up with a bundling provision that applied to bundles, all sorts of bundles. And it says you look at the individual prices. So for the first time, I agreed, if you see on top, to GAAP. But I don't say anywhere that the bundle is determined by how they keep their books. Now, at that point, Joe Reddish said, well, we pay more than GAAP. GAAP, in other words, if we applied GAAP to our Verizon franchise payment, we'd give you less than we now give you. So I said, all right, I can take care of that. I'm going to write that nothing prevents you from paying more than GAAP. So if you look at the bottom of this, if cable services are provided to subscribers in conjunction with non-cable services, nothing herein shall prevent the licensee from allocating a greater amount of the combined revenue to cable services than is otherwise provided pursuant to GAAP. I got it. And I've had it for 15 years. They don't agree to that anywhere. So GAAP says it's not perfect, but they look at the individual prices. The problem with cable is the individual prices are kind of a little meaningless because no one usually buys individual, but some people do. So we have the only thing that can protect us is they don't get to decide what's cable based on how they keep their books. We're applying the GAAP rule, and we have nothing stops you from paying more than GAAP. So that, for instance, is if I prevailed on this since they wanted to change this, by the way, right after Wareham, you know where they wanted to change this? Hingham.
Yeah.
And I said, no, we spent a year and a half. Remember this?
Oh.
Remember this, Dave? I said,
I do.
we negotiated in Hingham for a year.
Yeah.
And so that was the big, where I said, otherwise you didn't get back to us for a year and a half.
Yeah.
So that wasn't the case. So, so anyway, that's an example of if we get everything we need, then to me, whether we're 23 or 22.5 or 27, we want to get more, but I think we'll have a feel for where we want to be. And will also help is we'll see the subscriber numbers in mid-March. We'll know the subscriber numbers in a week or two.
Okay.
And we'll see how different they are. So the money is good.
All right.
And we're going to try to get the most we can. And I think we'll probably get to a place where we have a good sense of what we think it is we should offer. And this is the foundation for continuing to think about that after we get the legal language done.
Okay. And when do you think you'll have you said you'll work on the first draft from the.
Well, I'm just finishing with you now. I'll have it before the end of this month.
And of course, the diminished subscribers numbers doesn't always correlate with the diminished revenue, because there could be more revenue on the pay TV side. There could be more revenue on some of the other types of deals that they make or sell, or pay-per-view, things of that nature. So Have you been finding, Bill, that revenue going is has been sort of commensurate with subscriber growth going down?
I haven't looked at Verizon much, more so with Comcast, because Comcast redid, as you know, in 2017, how they calculate based on how much of the bundle. I'll say this, that Verizon's still trying to get these outs that will nullify your license. So those are the big fights with Verizon. Provisions that will give them an out apart from the out that explicitly stated. That's sort of the bigger fight. But what you should do is, as you have before, is get me the quarterly statements. So if you could put down there, Michael, do they go to the access folks or the town? I can't remember. Those are the town now.
It goes to the town, but I just got I got Verizon today, and I got
If you could get me the last for a year back, so I can look at each
I already sent you that.
Oh, you did that? I haven't. Okay,
yeah.
I just haven't. I will look at that, and that'll help me figure out the dollars.
Last quarter, if you want me to.
Good. Yes, that'd be very helpful.
Okay.
And that's helpful on its own, as John says, to take a look to see that they're not, it's always helpful to look at them together. You folks in the perfect world, you would chart them in a chart so you can kind of see it easily, but because they can be playing games with stuff. The big battles going forward on, Comcast for now counts the revenue from their internet base, that internet they do through cable. So if you get through cable, Disney Plus or something, my understanding is as of now, they're counting that because it's like through your cable system. But make no mistake, and Verizon even more so, they're going to want to not count that as cable. And so that's an important reason why we want to keep track and see what the revenue is like.
I noticed today that Apple signed a deal to put Apple Plus TV on Comcast. And I asked myself, well, that's a way for Apple to get much larger subscriber growth because it's easier for many people to be able to access that channel rather than having to buy an Apple TV box and all of that. Right. There's got to be some deal that Comcast is making with Apple where Comcast is getting some rev share out of being able to offer their service. And I wonder how that revenue is getting calculated vis-a-vis what we're doing, because that's just a way in which Comcast is making additional revenue, no different than
two things.
Getting it from Apple, not from us.
I no longer have Mike Katz available to help on that, but there are two people I wanted. One guy, a little aggressive guy in Florida, Alpervitz, who's good. So that's something I try to keep on top of and keep connected on. But you're exactly right. As of now, my understanding is, and it's how they do it is important too. But in some fashion, it's calculated as cable. We're not going to have to wait too long until they start saying, "Oh, that's internet," and that'll be a major fight. One other thing too. Let me give you the bad news. If in 2024 we have unified federal government, that's not the party that's in there now, the Cable Act is gone. So, that probably would take all, presidency, Senate, and House. But, and who knows, the filibuster would probably be gone too. So, so that there is a risk. And of course, the question of what happens to existing licenses. So, that stands for the proposition of try to get what you can, which I tell money is good, and I try to get and do get on the high end on dollars. But it also represents, they may want to delay. Our license here is up on 5 years, 2023, which is good before the election. But all the more reason at one point we want to get a license, which has caused me recently to think about how to do these licenses. With Verizon, it's just negotiated. There's no formality. there's not an RFP and a proposal and a preliminary denial. I do that with Comcast. There may be reason as we proceed ahead to have a little bit of a gun to the head. I mean, they could still just cause litigation, but a little bit of gun to the head of Verizon because as we move ahead and they're not wanting to do a license yet, and we're getting, past the April 2023 with, then, we may want to have a way to push them more. I'm not there yet with Verizon, but I've thought about it. But that is one of the things to keep in mind, that it is possible cable licensing will end after the next presidential election.
Okay.
On that cheery note.
Yeah, that cheery note. All right. So end of the month on the first draft, and we'll get back.
When will we meet again?
Probably in a month, about a month.
Yeah, let me just take a look, because I'm gone for vacation week.
Okay.
So vacation week is 18th to the 23rd.
Okay.
So if we could do it, I have a meeting on April 13th on a Wednesday.
Yep.
If you like, this is a Tuesday.
Yep.
If April 12th or April 26th, if you want to do Tuesday.
When we we'll take that into account when we do our what's the next meeting part.
All right. Well, all very helpful, folks. I appreciate that.
All right.
All right. Thanks, Bill.
Okay.
Thanks, Bill.
Bye-bye. Thank you.
All right, moving along here. Discuss and approve the grant agreement for the Hingham Schools teacher position. And I think I saw it someplace, but I'm a little behind on that. Does anyone have the update on?
Yeah.
Okay, go ahead.
So is that something you can share? I had sent you in the email.
Did you send it to me? All right, hold on a minute. Hold on a minute. Let's see.
So while you're doing that, I'll just kind of introduce it.
Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead, you introduce it.
Yeah. So, one of the things that the committee has kind of talked about in the past is, we're partially funding a teacher's position at Hingham High School in relationship to the media classes, but we continue to not get any playable content for Harbor Media. And that's not the fault of Harbor Media. It's just more along the lines of the way the media classes are kind of designed and some of the trademark music that they use and things along those lines. So we thought it might be a good time to put together a really short contract with the Hingham Public Schools, and we talked with Tom Mayo and John Coughlin, who's the town attorney, on drafting a one-page contract with the public schools, and we've kind of come up with a proposal. John Rice kind of worked on this also, to kind of basically say in exchange for our funding of this position, we would like to have 2 arable pieces for Harbor Media a month. And then there's some legalese that the town put in and things along those lines. So that's basically the overview.
I can't. Can you share on your end?
I found one. I don't know if it's the version that's final. I found a draft of it.
Yeah, why don't you share that one?
Oh, that'd be great. Thank you.
Thanks.
Right.
It really hasn't changed, Chris. Well, definitely hasn't changed.
This look right?
That's it. Yeah, that's it. That's it.
Thanks, Chris.
Sure thing.
So, the first paragraph just basically says, the 2 parties that are involved. The second paragraph, we talk about the position, and we kind of put a kind of a ceiling on the funding. I think last year we paid around $23,000. And we put a ceiling of $25,000 per year because I think they just take kind of a percentage of the teacher's salary, and it varies per year depending upon the seniority of the teacher. And then the third paragraph talks about that we would like to have 2 arrowable shows on a monthly basis from the classes. And then, we wanted an educational liaison to attend the Hingham cable TV committees on a monthly basis. And then on an annual basis, we would like a representative from the schools to kind of go over the content of the courses with us. And I think that's basically it. There's some language as, we can terminate the agreement and et cetera, et cetera.
It seems pretty basic now that I'm finally getting back to it here. I have reached out to Dr. Adams. I haven't hooked up with her yet, so I'm not really sure how she wants to handle the position on the committee, but we'll work through it. But this seems fine with me. This is something that they actually have to sign off on, though, right?
Yeah. So on the second page, it signs off. Yes, the Hingham Public Schools. And I don't know whether it would be the Cable TV Advisory Committee that would sign off on it, or whether the town would. I'm not really
sure. From my point of view, I'm good with it. I mean, it's a lot more detailed than what we had before, and I think we had some angst about what exactly the deliverables are, and this is kind of gives more verbiage around that. So do we want to vote on this and let Tom know and kind of move it along when we finally get a hold of Dr. Adams?
Sure.
All right. Did I hear a motion?
I motion that we pass the agreement for partial funding of the media teaching position.
Okay. Anyone want to second that?
I'll second it.
Okay. And we're supposed to poll you, right? So Dave Jones, I approve. Mike Leary.
Approve.
John Rice.
Approve.
All right. Chris.
Approve.
All right. So approved, and we'll move that along. And as soon as we get some contact with the schools, we'll circle back with her. Okay.
Okay. So I will. I'll let John Coughlin know we're good with it.
Yes, please. That's
Do you want me to hold off on having him go to the schools until you talk to him, Dave, or?
No, you can go ahead. That's fine. Okay. Yeah. Next agenda item is the finances update from Mr. Leary.
Yeah. So recently, I prepared kind of like a comparative analysis of the financial statements from year to year. I presented a draft to the committee. Harbor Media has come back with some comments. I just haven't had a chance to deal with them. I think the comments are reasonable, and so we're going to delay looking at that until Michelle and I can kind of sit down and work through the comments and be in agreement with some of the analysis and trends.
Okay. And as I always ask every time, is how are we doing on money going to the right ledgers and whatnot? I think we're getting much better, right?
I look at it on a quarterly basis, Dave, because I want to. The revenues mainly come in like the second or third month of the quarter, so it'll probably be next quarter that I'll take a look at the trial balances.
Okay, that'd be great, because then there's nothing worse than, well, where's this money going? That kind of thing. So that's good. Excellent. Okay. Any questions for Mike on finances? Going once? There being none, we will move on to the Harbor Media Agreement Renewal Update. We've had a subset of our committee with John and Mike handling that. And John, you can give us, I sent out earlier the final draft agreement that the town has given to Harbor Media, all 27 pages of it. John, you want to just give us a quick overview of what you guys have been up to and what the next steps are?
Okay, so this is our agreement that has been updated from the previous agreement where we had a 5-year deal with Harbor Media and HCAM, that is. And a number of the concerns that we've talked about in our committee over the years, we've tried best to incorporate into it with ideas and feedback from a number of folks, both at the town level as well as the different committee members that have been here. So I think we're almost there. I think we've almost gotten an agreement. There's a couple of maybe outstanding issues that Tom Mayo and John Coughlin, the lawyer, are still negotiating with Laura and company. But for the most part, a lot of the ideas that we discussed before have been incorporated in that. And what we're trying to do now is to get the committee, all the members of the committee, to read the draft agreement so that when it finally gets agreed upon by HCAM and the town, that we get a chance to give feedback as to whether we recommend it to the select board. If we do recommend it to select board, then they'll take it up and they'll do what they do. They'll approve it or change it or what they can do. But I think our recommendation is going to go a long way, considering that we've been working in tandem with the town on the different points that we want. I mean, some of the biggest hit lists that we've been able to do is we've been able to, number one, in terms of scope of services, we've now defined that we have an HD channel, and what the HD channel is to be a best of channel that would also be simulcast as part of the public channel. So I think the other part that was important that we got is more of an emphasis on member-produced programming, much like the consultant that we hired, Bob Kelly, suggested in the pieces that we discussed in previous meetings, his document, so that we want to encourage them to do that more, do more training, both on-demand training as well as have regular classes, so that they can start building a better base of members who could be actively producing their own material. Sometimes in collaboration with the staff, but sometimes trying to encourage them to do it on their own if they're appropriately trained. And, sort of language set out that the Harbor Media, or HCAM that is, really can't, approve or disapprove of some of that material. They have to also loan the equipment that they have, which is part of the cable access mission, to help facilitate that programming. So there's language in there on that you'll read. The other part we got in there was we were a little bit concerned about how the overhead in terms of the HR component of overhead was creeping up and up and up, and it reached a very high level at one point. We took, again, the suggestions from Bob Kelly and tried to do what we felt was best practices of other cable access providers and cap it at 65%, as well as capping the rent that they would do so that it wouldn't be blown out of proportion of 15% of what their revenue is. The biggest thing that we got is, remember, we always had a concern about the excess funds that Harbor Media has had in their bank accounts, and we've been wondering, like, what are we doing with that? And we were able to initiate an idea of creating a grant process, a program fund. And there's language in there about how much of that excess financial reserves they have that need to be dedicated to this program fund. There'd be a committee established that would be an independent committee Harbor Media would have one member of that committee, depending on whether we do 3 or 5. It depends on what we really come up with. I think a lot of that, the nuances of how that committee gets done and what their intent is and what their due diligence is on making sure the programming is done adequately and financially responsible. Some of those things I think still have to be, worked out from a practical point of view, but in terms of the intent of taking that money and putting into great programming that Hingham members and citizens and community groups can produce by being in a competitive situation of creating proposals that include budgets, treatments, timetables to augment the public channel in a big way. So we're really excited about that because that's sort of never been done before, as far as I know, in different cable operations. And I think we can get some really great programming out of this. There's some efficiencies that we can get because we own a lot of equipment that can be used by these producers. And we're going to try to encourage them to use our cameras and what other facilities make sense. Again, this is going to be independent production for the most part, not so much Harbor Media staff production. This will be something that'll be approved by this committee, and Harbor Media will have a representative, so they'll have input. So I'm very excited about that. I think that that's a really good thing. You can read about that in the thing. I think the other part of the agreement that we were really able to get through was more of a clarification on the kind of commercial programming and the aspirational regional programming and how we do the reporting on that in terms of, basically a Hingham first approach on our proposal for the money that we give them. So that's in different elements in the agreement. Then to that point, there is a lot of sort of end of the year and strategic planning that we're going to ask them to do, that they will present to the Cable Advisory Committee first and then to the Select Board a month later, so that we know that we're all on track and that we're doing the right reporting. So I think in the sum total of it, that's some of the stuff that I think are the most important parts. But again, we want all the members to read it. All the members are going to come back at the next meeting, which I'm proposing will be on the 29th because of the timetable of trying to get this done. The town is going to do an extension on Thursday of a 1-month extension. So we have a little breathing room, but that of course has to take into effect the final negotiations, the presenting to the Cable Advisory Committee for approval, and then take it to the Select Board and to have them approve it. And of course, anything can happen in between that time, but we're trying to give ourselves enough time to make sure that we can, put this to bed by the middle of the following month. And so I'm encouraging everybody to read it and to give us feedback in 1 week if they can. If you have points that you want to put in or that you think we're omitting, we're asking you to do that. Now, I'd like to say that, there's been a lot of hard work that's gone into this negotiation. So I would really think carefully about, making wholesale big changes. It would really slow everything down and make it impossible to go forward. I personally am very happy with the direction that we've taken. I feel very good that Harbor Media has been able to compromise much more than I even thought possible before. And so that's been great. So they've been a good partner in this. And, so going forward, I think we've got something we can live with for the next 5 years.
Right, so we got homework, 1 week to review this thing. Right. I don't know, Laura, if you want to make any kind of statement about what you think.
Well, John, you gave a great summary, I thought, and we are indeed almost there. We had to ask for the month extension just because our board has to have a meeting too. And,
that's right.
and I have to convince all of them to read it too. And
I forgot about that. Yeah. Should have added
also,
this.
Two boards.
Also, we have to pass it by our attorney. So but I think it'll be easily done, in a couple of weeks.
All right. So to John's point, I will definitely schedule a meeting for what you said, the 29th is what you want?
The 29th, we thought, talk to Tom about that. I think that gives everybody enough time.
Okay.
And a little wiggle room.
Yeah, I will do that. And I guess Tom will take care of, if everything goes according to Hoyle or whatever, getting us on the agenda and all that, right? I mean, for the select board, I think you said the meeting was in April, right?
Yes, April 15th, I think he told me, but I'd have to check that.
Okay, all right.
I think the deal's got to be done by then if we sign it on Thursday. I think that was it's got to get, otherwise we'd have to extend it all over again. I mean, we don't want to do
No,
that.
we don't want to do that. We don't want to do that. Okay. All right, excellent. Any other questions, team members here?
Yeah, where is the draft of this agreement?
I sent it as an email. There's a link in there. There was actually two emails I sent. One is I had a link to an earlier draft of it. The second link that I sent you is the final draft that I got from Tom Mayo and the team. If you didn't get that email, then I'll resend that to you, Chris. Okay.
The reason there was two of them is because we had a meeting today and Michael had a bunch of, there were typos, there were this, there was that. He just cleaned up the contract. There wasn't anything substantively that was added.
I think I didn't get. I don't think I got it.
All right. Did you guys get? Maybe I got an email problem.
Is it on the Dropbox, Dave, or
It was
Google
the
Drive?
Dropbox one. The Dropbox.
Okay.
Yeah, Dave, I don't think I got it either.
All right. I'll send it out as an attachment after the meeting. Okay.
One other thing, and I mentioned this to Dave, was I thought the town council, John Coughlin, did a nice job. He was pretty responsive, and I thought the contract looked really clean. So.
And just for people, if anyone else is on a committee and has to get a contract done, I guess this agreement adheres to the current boilerplate template that the town will be using going forward from McLaughlin. So that's what it looks like for what it's worth.
I mean, I think if we execute this agreement and Harbor Media, takes the spirit of it that we're doing in a good way. I mean, this is going to make Hingham cable television be leading edge.
Player.
No question about it. I mean, it takes us into a whole different, level.
Yeah. Any other questions, comments? My sincere appreciation to our little subcommittee, whatever, on pushing this through. It's been great, and also many thanks to Harbor Media, HCAM for working with us on this and getting it done. We're sorry we have to do a few extensions, but it seems like we're going to get there. So that's great. All right. Michelle usually does a programming update. I don't know if would you like to do one, Laura, or want to just?
I regret that I am not competent to do a programming update.
I figured you'd say that.
She's on vacation, and I'm sure she'll catch you up next month.
That's all right. All right, we will catch up again with the programming update on our next meeting, and then I have to admit that I've been a little preoccupied with some family stuff, but I have not reviewed the annual report stuff. I had down here as an annual report discussion. If you guys have comments, suggestions, or whatever, now would be your chance. But I certainly am not confident to give any comments because I just didn't get to it. Anybody? Going once, going twice?
Well, Dave, I mean, maybe we could go into more detail because I'm going to do the financial statement analysis of the annual next meeting. So. All
right. We will push that one off then.
Well, Dave, I mean, as part of this contract,
yes,
one of the things it's going to do is it's going to trigger a lot of reporting very, very soon thereafter.
Yep.
Obviously, there's going to be a fair amount of discussion about implementation of the new ideas that are in the agreement. So, I think in a way, those are going to be even more important discussions.
Okay, no, that's fair. So we'll push that one off too. So I'm proposing, we're kind of winding down here. I'm proposing for the next meeting, the agenda, we'll only have one agenda item. It'll be on the 29th, where we'll have our final comments and suggestions. Do we vote on that then too, John?
Yes, we vote on it so that we send it up to the select board for their approval. If we give them our blessing, then they will look at it probably more favorably. But if we don't give it our blessing for one reason or another, then they
Well, they can still
probably will
do
be
it.
asking more questions. So I guess.
Okay.
But I think seeing that we were so involved in it, I'm not sure I see that happening. But you know, I'm not every committee member either.
No. Okay. So the 29th, be prepared. Read through the agreement. If you have anything, like John says, it's got to be something you really, really want to bring up. But on the 29th, we'll discuss it and we will vote on it on the 29th. Okay.
So Dave, are people to send comments beforehand? Like,
You really can't collaborate on something like this beforehand.
so that's like the open meeting law thing again.
I defer to Chris, though. Is that correct, Chris? Chris, I'm my parliamentarian. Get off of mute.
Well, I mean, if I wanted to share my ideas with Michael and John wanted to share his, but individually, I think that would be okay because it's just me explaining something to Michael for the document.
Right. I get.
If he would then relay to John something I said, then that would be a violation. But as long as it's just a two-party communication.
Okay. Exactly.
I think also if there's discussion about people are unclear about what was the intent of a particular section, they maybe want to be educated. They could speak to one of us, or they could speak to the council too, I suppose.
Okay. Now,
if they needed clarification on like, I don't understand this. What does this mean?
Yeah.
I definitely don't want to run afoul.
But definitely the meeting that we're voting on it. If someone sees something in the contract that just is unacceptable, we need to have a one-on-one discussion right before the meeting, just so that we don't have,
right.
A blow up at the meeting.
That's right. Yeah, I mean, ultimately at the meeting, there'll be an up and down vote. So if there's one member that has lots of problems with it and everybody else loves it, they're not going to hold the day. So it is a voting situation in terms of how it comes out of committee.
That's right. Sure. That's right. Okay. Unless we have anything else, can someone move to adjourn?
I'll move to adjourn.
Second, all those in favor? Well, we don't have to do.